Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca, and today we are going to be talking about my favourite character archetypes and tropes. First up, what is an archetype? An archetype is something that is used in storytelling. It can be characters, but it can also be things like objects and settings. But it is pretty much a template that is used in storytelling to convey things like realism, acceptance, and relatability. An example of an archetype that will not be present in this video today is the mother figure. As humans, we know what a mother figure is, so when this is used in fiction, we automatically have connotations and a basic understanding of what a mother figure is and what role they will play in a story. Now, I have said that this is character archetypes and tropes as well, because I'm not 100% certain that the things that I'm going to talk about today are going to fall under the archetype category, but for the ones that aren't archetypes, they are definitely tropes. And a trope is a recurring theme throughout a genre that we see over and over again, repeated through all types of storytelling. So we are going to be talking about 6 archetypes and tropes today. They are in no particular order, just pretty much the order that I've written them down. All of the archetypes and tropes I'm going to be talking about today are predominantly present in fantasy fiction. You may find them in other places as well, but I'm predominantly a fantasy reader, and these are things that I see and I love mainly in fantasy. But I'm going to be talking about what they are, why I love them, and also giving you guys a couple of instances where I have seen this archetype or trope used in books. Now, the first one we're going to be talking about today is the immortal warrior, which is one that may fall more under the trope category than the archetype. You are most likely to find the immortal warrior in fantasy romance. You do see them a little bit in paranormal romance as well, but they're not always warriors. But they are usually a male figure. I have seen it done with females as well, but as the central characters of a story, they do tend to be male. They are usually many years older than your protagonist. A lot of the time they are centuries older than the protagonist, and they have lived through centuries of wars. They have usually participated or played an integral role in the historical wars of the story that you're reading. Now, one thing that I really love about these characters is that they tend to come with a whole ton of trauma. As I mentioned, they have usually fought past battles and past wars, and this has normally scarred them in some way. They carry the guilt of the lives that they have taken. Sometimes they have been on the losing side of the war, and that comes with a certain amount of shame and also repercussions. And in the case of fantasy romance, when the immortal warrior is male, you do generally find that your main character is female, and they do start to grow closer, and she teaches him how to let go of the past, start to heal, and learn to love again. As you may find with one of the other tropes that I'm going to be mentioning today, I do really love the theme of things that have happened in the past, like big events that we don't get to see on the page that have greatly impacted the main character. So that is definitely one element that I love about it. We also generally have a certain amount of snark and sass in this character, which I really love. And you guys know me, I love my fantasy romance, and there's nothing better for me than an immortal warrior. So instances of where I have seen this character is, of course, in any book by Sarah J. Maas. Let's just get this over with right here, right now. All of Sarah J. Maas's books and series are fantasy romance, and they do all have immortal warriors. Some of them are fae, as in Throne of Glass and also Court of Thorns and Roses, and in Crescent City we do have fae warriors in there, but the main love interest is a fallen angel. As well as that, I have also recently discovered this trope in the Tyrant Soul series by C.L. Wilson. The immortal warriors in here are fae as well. They are slightly different to the Sarah J. Maas immortal warriors, as they do tend to fall more into the category of the overbearing guilt as opposed to the arrogance and the sass like in Sarah J. Maas, but I do still love the immortal warrior trope done in this instance as well. The second one we are going to be talking about today is the villain with a tragic backstory. Now, the reason why I love this is the same reason why I love grey morality, which I have spoken about in a video I did not too long ago, which is my favourite fantasy tropes. And it's just that as human beings we are so unbelievably nuanced, and the thing that I love about grey morality, which also transfers into this, is that it allows us to explore this nuance through fiction. While what they are doing is very, very wrong, and while they are 100% the villain in the story and their actions are inexcusable, I find it fascinating on a human level and also on a psychological level how their past lives and past experiences have shaped them into the figure that they are in the story as you are currently reading it. I also think that one of the main appeals of villains in fiction is that you get to explore a darker side. You get to explore explore what people do without a moral compass and without anybody there to tell them that they are doing the wrong thing and guide them onto the path of right, which is not something that we get to explore in real life without vast consequences. So I do like that I can do this in fiction. One example of a villain with a tragic backstory is Lavana in the Lunar Chronicles. The Lunar Chronicles is a 4-part young adult science fiction series that is a collection of fairy tale retellings. Now there is a novella that goes along with the Lunar Chronicles called Fairest, and this is Lavana's backstory. Now Lavana does some pretty terrible things throughout the course of the Lunar Chronicles, and she also does some pretty terrible things in her novella. However, I just really found it fascinating to see what had happened to shape her into the person that she is. I won't lie, a lot of her motivations for what she does is petty, but she has been wronged by a lot of people and she sees it fit to take revenge against the people who've wronged her and try and dominate the universe, as opposed to healing and growth, which is not the desired outcome in these circumstances, but I can't lie, it makes for a great villain. Not my favourite book, but a villain origin story that I did enjoy based on the concept of it is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. Oh wow, I just realised that those are both by Marissa Meyer. So Heartless is a Queen of Hearts origin story. Didn't particularly love the execution of that book. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I did really enjoy the concept, and it is about a girl called Kath who just wants to open a bakery. However, her family have other ideas for her, and it is pretty much about how the external forces that she can't control, although if she had a bit more agency she could have maybe done something about it, but it's about how the external forces have shaped her and forced her to be this person that she didn't want to be, which ended up with consequences that resulted in her becoming the villain in Alice in Wonderland. Next up we have one that I know a lot of you guys will probably argue is overdone, and that is the lost royalty trope. Now I would say that this one is more of a trope than an archetype, but I think that the themes that are commonly associated with the lost royalty trope do also make it kind of an archetype, because what I do tend to see in stories that use lost royalty is that it is majorly about a sense of belonging. It is a sense of misplacement, not knowing where you belong, because usually the main character either does not remember their early childhood or have been removed from the place where they belong because of things like maybe revolution, or their kingdom has been conquered, which has left them without a throne and oftentimes a family. So I feel like that's where it comes into it being an archetype, because we do have strong themes of belonging with the purpose to create relatability and build a connection with the reader. Now I'm not sure what it is that I particularly love about this trope, but I just love stories that have royalty in it. I think I like the lost royalty trope because we also have that level of angst where the character is not actually where they belong, so they do have to go on a personal journey. There is also a great sense of longing because, as I said, they don't know where they belong, they just know that they're not really in the right place in their lives. But there is also usually a lot of character growth in there. Like, we all know the stereotype of royalty being spoiled and removed from reality, so by having a lost princess, for example, this character is forced to go through a very big character arc and a lot of personal growth to then finally reclaim their throne. And what this does is it removes the spoiled aspect of them, I guess, as they have had to fight for their position instead of be sheltered and have everything handed to them. Now this trope is extremely popular and is once again used by Sarah J Maas quite frequently, although I won't tell you in what books because that would be a little bit of a spoiler. We also see it to some extent in The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, although the circumstances aren't quite what they usually are. And while this is something that is most commonly used in young adult fantasy, it is also in the adult genre as well, with slightly different circumstances. An example of this would be Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Okay, so the next one, I'm not saying necessarily that this is my favorite of the ones that we're talking about today, but it could be because it is a character that I latch onto every single time, and that is the legendary hero. Now the thing about this one that's really interesting is that they are often not present in the story. The 2 examples that I'm going to be giving you, the legendary hero is not actually present in the story at all, and what I feel this does is it builds an air of romanticism around them and an air of mysticism so that the reader puts them on as much of a pedestal as the characters in the story do. They are a historical figure, but usually not too far into the history of the story. They are absent from the page. They have normally accomplished great feats. They are known for how benevolent they are, how strong they were, how they always did the right thing, and there are usually characters present in the story who knew them personally or intimately, who are relaying their perspective, normally to your central character who doesn't actually know the legendary hero, which further adds to this heroic status that both the main characters and also the reader feels towards this character. Now, this is an archetype or a trope that I get hung up on every single time. Every single time there is a figure like this in a story, I literally just want to know about them. I want to know why they're not there. I want to know what happened when they were off the page. And because everybody has such good things to say about them, I just want to read their story. I want to know what it was like to be them. Obviously, if there was a story that followed them or a story from their perspective, then it would kind of ruin this whole romantic ideal that you have built up about them, because they'll then just become like a normal person that had to make difficult decisions and your typical fantasy protagonist. But that does nothing to satisfy my curiosity and fascination about what they're really like. Now, the two examples of this character that I can think of, the first one is Rhaegar Targaryen in Game of Thrones. For those of you unfamiliar with Game of Thrones, Rhaegar Targaryen was the elder brother of Daenerys, and he was next in line for the throne when the Mad King was killed. So when the country went to war, I think it was 10-20 years before the present timeline of Game of Thrones, Rhaegar was killed in battle and his wife and children were slaughtered in the rebellion that overthrew the crown. However, aside from a few characters who have a very negative impression of him, everybody else talks about what a hero Rhaegar is, how good he is, how great he was in battle, how he was handsome and the best at everything he did. And I truly believe that Rhaegar Targaryen is the character that was done the most dirty in Game of Thrones, because his life was cut so short and he could have been a great guy, he could have been a great ruler, but they killed him. Now, my second example of this trope is chivalry farcia in Assassin's Apprentice. The Farcia trilogy by Robin Hobb does start out with chivalry's bastard son being dropped off at the gates of the keep to be returned to his father. Now, the main protagonist of our story is chivalry's son Fitz, but by the time Fitz gets to the palace where his father is supposed to be, he finds out that his father, who was the king in waiting, has abdicated the throne and gone to live in the countryside. However, the people that Fitz is close to throughout this series were also very close to chivalry, and they always talk about what a great guy he was. In this book, the royalty and the nobility have names of virtues. So as Prince Chivalry's name is chivalry, he was very chivalrous, he was very noble, he would have been the perfect king, he was very good at public facing things, he was great in battle, and honestly just a stand-up guy. However, because he abdicates and leaves at the beginning of the series, we never actually see him. We only hear accounts from other people of what he was like, and I don't know, it just fascinates me. The legendary hero trope is honestly one of my favorites. And then finally, the last one we're going to be talking about today is kind of similar to the villain with a tragic backstory, and it is downtrodden rogues. Now, I've called this the downtrodden rogues, but it is mainly thieves and assassins that I like to read from the perspective of, but it can be any sort of character like an outlaw or a bandit that are technically doing the right thing, but they are the criminals of the story in the eyes of your average citizen, because they are generally from a criminal underworld. Now, the reason that I like this is kind of the same way that I really like villains in stories. These characters are not necessarily good people. A lot of the reasons why they are assassins or thieves tends to be because of circumstance, because of how they were born, because of things that have happened to them which have meant that they're down on their luck and they have to fulfill these roles to survive. But that does not change the fact that in the eyes of your average citizen of the realm, they are the criminals that need to be beaten. So I really like reading from this perspective, because we have the people that we are rooting for that are actually doing kind of bad things. They do tend to fall into a Robin Hood kind of situation where yes, they are rogues, but they are stealing from the rich and giving to the poor and things like that. I do also really like the setting that these characters tend to be in, which is usually something like a grimy underworld. And as well as that, I'm a gamer and I do usually play as a rogue class, which is probably another reason why I feel a kinship towards the assassins and the thieves of story. So once again, this is a trope that is very popular in young adult fiction, especially at the moment, but we do have instances of it in the adult genre as well. A series that I haven't read but I do suspect does fall into this category is the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch, which I believe is about a band of thieves. We also have the Nevernight Chronicle by J. Kristoff, which follows a badass assassin that does actually kill people, although she does sometimes kind of feel bad about it. And the one thing that I love about Mia Corvette is that she is singularly driven by her revenge. Like, she wants revenge, that's the one thing she wants, and she will stop at nothing to get it, and I have to admire a girl with agency. Predictably, we do also have Six of Crows. This is about a band of 6 criminals and thieves that live in the underground. They work at the brothels, they have casinos, they scam people on a regular basis, and they they are working on a heist to break out an inventor of a very dangerous drug out of prison. And most recently I have read this in The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant, which is a brand new release that is also a Les Miserables retelling that follows Eponine as she joins the Thieves Guild. And one of the things I love about that particular story is the glamour and the glitz of the criminal underworld. So that is about it for this video. I have just realized, however, that I said I was going to talk about 6 tropes in this video and I actually spoke about 5, so sorry about that. There's only 5. I don't have another one at this moment. So please let me know down in the comments if any of these archetypes or tropes are your personal favorites, and also let me know what your favorites are. Maybe give me some recommendations as well and give recommendations to everybody down in the comments. But that is all I have for this video, so please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, which I will be restocking very soon. There's quite a lot out of stock at the minute, but anyway, tangent. The Instagram for that, and also a 10% off discount code. Well, that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.